Hey guys, tonight we're going to dim the lights and drift back to a time of knights and kings, of a brutal war that stretched across generations, and of a young woman whose faith ignited a nation, only to lead her to a truly horrifying end. Forget the storybook heroines for a moment, because we're diving into the horrifying fate of Joan of Arc. This isn't some glorious legend with a neat, tidy ending. It's a raw, disturbing tale of courage, conviction, and the crushing machinery of political and religious power. You're about to step into a world where angels spoke to farm girls, where a peasant could lead armies, and where defying the powerful could cost you everything. Frankly, if you were living in 15th century France, you'd probably spend most nights just hoping your village wasn't on the next battle map, let alone listening to divine voices. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And hey, let me know where you're listening from, and what time it is for you right now. Now, dim the lights. Maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You open your eyes not to the clamor of a battlefield, but to the quiet, rhythmic sounds of rural life. The year is around 1412, and you are Jeanne d'Arc, born in the small village of Domremy, in the region of Lorraine, France. Your world is one of simplicity, tending to sheep, helping with chores in your family's humble cottage, and attending Mass in the village church. The air smells of freshly turned earth, wood smoke, and the faint, sweet scent of wildflowers. Your family, humble peasants, are devout Catholics, and faith is the bedrock of your existence. This quiet, ordinary beginning is a stark contrast to the extraordinary, tumultuous life that awaits you, a detail that makes your story all the more remarkable. However, even in your secluded village, the shadow of the 100 Years' War looms large. This isn't a conflict confined to distant battlefields. It's a brutal, ongoing struggle that has ravaged France for nearly a century. The English, allied with the powerful Burgundian faction of French nobles, control vast swathes of French territory. The legitimate French king, Charles de Setters, is mentally ill, and his son, the Dauphin Charles, is disinherited by a treaty that names the English king as the heir to the French throne. France is fractured, its people suffering under occupation, its true king effectively exiled to the south. You hear the stories, the grim tales of English raids, of villages burned, of the constant threat of violence, of the fate of France. In these darkest hours, seems all but sealed. This backdrop of incessant war and national despair is crucial to understanding the context of your emergence from a very young age. Something extraordinary begins to happen to you. At first, it's just a feeling, a profound spiritual presence. Then, around the age of 13, you begin to hear voices, not just whispers in your mind, but clear, distinct voices, accompanied by a bright light. These are not the voices of mere mortals. They are the voices of saints. Saint Michael the Archangel, Saint Catherine of Alexandria, and Saint Margaret of Antioch. They speak to you, not of earthly matters, but of a divine mission. They tell you that you are chosen by God to save France. They command you to drive the English out, to ensure the Dauphin is crowned King of France, and to bring peace to your ravaged homeland. This mystical calling, a core historical fact, is the very essence of your story. Yet it remains a profound mystery. Scholars still debate the nature of these voices, whether they were divine intervention, psychological phenomena, or a combination of deep conviction and external suggestion. The idea is preposterous. You are a young, illiterate peasant girl, completely unversed in the ways of war or court. How could you possibly lead armies, advise a king, or change the course of a century-long conflict yet? The voices are insistent, unwavering. They fill you with a conviction so powerful it transcends all doubt. They tell you that it is God's will, and that with God, all things are possible. You try to keep these experiences secret, sharing them only with a few trusted individuals. The weight of this divine burden, so immense for a young girl, must have been overwhelming. As the voices grow stronger, their commands become more urgent. The English are laying siege to Orléans, a strategically vital city. If Orléans falls, the last bastion of French resistance in the north will crumble, and the Dauphin's claim to the throne will be irrevocably lost. The voices tell you you must go to France. You must raise the siege of Orléans, and you must lead the Dauphin to Reims for his coronation. It's a clear, unequivocal command, one that sends shivers down your spine. In 1429, at the age of 17, you decide to act. You travel to the nearby town of Vaucouleurs, approaching the local garrison commander, Robert de Baudricourt. You explain your divine mission, telling him that you are sent by God to save France. Baudricourt, naturally, is skeptical. He dismisses you, perhaps thinking you a madwoman or a deluded peasant. He tells your relative who accompanied you, "Give her a good beating and send her back to her father." This initial rejection is a common thread in the stories of prophets and visionaries. The world rarely embraces the unconventional messenger at first glance, but you are persistent. You return to Baudricourt again and again, your conviction unwavering. You predict a French military defeat near Orléans, which soon comes true. This uncanny accuracy, coupled with your undeniable sincerity and the growing desperation of the French cause, begins to sway him. People start to gather around you, drawn by your simple yet profound faith. Finally, Baudricourt agrees to give you an escort to Chinon, where the Dauphin Charles holds court. He famously tells you, "Go and come what may." It's a gamble, a last desperate hope in the face of utter defeat. The journey to Chinon is long and perilous. Cutting through Burgundian-controlled territory, you cut your hair short, like a man, and dress in male attire, a practical decision for travel and safety, but one that will later be used against you. You are accompanied by a small group of loyal followers, including 2 knights and your brothers. This journey, a dangerous undertaking for a young woman, showcases your immense courage and resolve. The visual image of you, a young woman in men's clothes, riding through hostile territory, is a powerful one. Upon your arrival at Chinon, the Dauphin Charles, insecure and cautious, decides to test you. He disguises himself amongst his courtiers, hoping to expose you as a fraud, but you, guided by your voices, walk directly to him, bypassing the nobility, and kneel, proclaiming, "God give you a good life. Gentle Dauphin, I am Joan the Maid, sent by God to bring succor to the king and to the kingdom." This uncanny recognition, witnessed by many, deeply impresses Charles and his court, serving as a powerful validation of your divine claims. This specific detail of recognizing the Dauphin is a famous historical anecdote that helped establish your credibility. Still, Charles remains hesitant. He subjects you to rigorous theological examination by a council of learned clerics in Poitiers. They question you for weeks, probing your faith, your visions, and your knowledge of doctrine. They want to ensure you are not a witch or a heretic, but truly sent by God. You answer their questions with remarkable clarity, piety, and an unshakable confidence that leaves them baffled and ultimately convinced of your sincerity. You tell them, "I know more than you about this case, and I did not learn it from books." This confident, yet humble, assertion of divine knowledge is a key aspect of your persona. The fact that the Church, after extensive examination, found no fault with your faith is a crucial, often overlooked, detail given your later fate. Finally, convinced by your conviction, your seemingly divine knowledge, and the desperate state of France, Charles gives you command of a contingent of troops to march to the relief of Orléans. It's an unprecedented decision, a peasant girl leading an army, You immediately demand a sacred banner, white with a depiction of Christ in judgment, bearing the names Jesus and Mary. You also demand a sword, found behind the altar of Sainte Catherine de Fierbois. Precisely as your voices had described, you are not a skilled warrior in the traditional sense, but you are a symbol, a divinely appointed leader who inspires boundless hope and courage in the demoralized French troops. As you ride towards Orléans, the demoralized French army, which had been suffering from constant defeats and a pervasive sense of despair, is transformed. Your arrival instills a new spirit of defiance and courage. The soldiers, who had lost faith in their commanders, now rally around you, believing you are God's chosen instrument. This psychological impact, turning the tide of morale, is a crucial, yet intangible, aspect of your military success. It wasn't just tactics, it was belief. You were not fighting a conventional war. You were fighting a spiritual one. You are on horseback, riding through the muddy, churned-up fields outside Orléans. The air is thick with the grim reality of a prolonged siege, the distant rumble of cannons, the acrid smell of gunpowder, and the desperate cries from within the city walls. It's April 1429. Your arrival at the French camp, a young peasant woman in armor, carrying a white banner, causes an immediate stir. The demoralized French commanders, weary from repeated failures, are skeptical, even scornful. But the common soldiers, the footmen and archers who have endured months of starvation and despair, see something different in you, a glimmer of hope, a divine promise. You are not a seasoned general, not a grizzled veteran. You are simply Joan the Maid, and your unwavering conviction alone begins to turn the tide of morale. This remarkable psychological impact, revitalizing a defeated army through sheer belief, is a crucial, often intangible, aspect of your early success. You immediately challenge the traditional military tactics, which relied on long, drawn-out sieges and cautious maneuvers. Your voices urge you to direct, swift action. You demand that the French commanders abandon their defensive positions and launch immediate assaults on the English fortifications surrounding Orléans. They resist, arguing for prudence, for patience. They are professional soldiers, trained in the slow grind of medieval warfare. You are an impetuous girl claiming divine guidance. This tension between established military protocol and your divinely inspired urgency is a recurring theme in your early campaigns. Your first major move is to lead a supply convoy into Orléans. The English, despite their strong positions, are caught off guard by your audacious speed and the renewed fervor of the French troops. You successfully break through their lines, bringing much-needed food and morale to the starving citizens and defenders. The city, which had been on the verge of surrender, is now revitalized. Your presence, leading the charge through the very gates, becomes a powerful symbol of hope for a besieged population. This successful relief mission, though seemingly minor, was a huge psychological victory. Then comes the direct assault. You lead the French forces in a series of daring, almost reckless attacks on the English bastions. On May 4th, you lead a successful assault on the English stronghold of Saint-Lô. On May 6th, you target the Tourelle, a key English fort guarding the bridge to Orléans. The fighting is fierce, brutal hand-to-hand combat. Arrows fly, swords clash, and the air is filled with the screams of men. You are wounded during the assault, an arrow piercing your shoulder, yet you pull it out yourself, refuse to leave the field for long, and quickly return to rally your troops. This personal bravery, leading from the front, is a fundamental historical fact that inspired your soldiers and amazed your contemporaries. Your courage, bordering on recklessness, electrifies the French. They fight with a renewed ferocity they haven't shown in years. The English, accustomed to their easy victories, are bewildered by this sudden, inexplicable shift in French morale. By May 8th, After just a few days of your direct intervention, the English abandon the siege of Orleans. The city is relieved. The impossible has happened. You have achieved what no French general, no amount of conventional strategy. Could you have broken the English stranglehold on Orleans? A victory so profound it will forever be known as the miracle of Orleans. This sudden, dramatic turnaround is a common historical fact. Marking the turning point of the 100 Years' War, the relief of Orleans sends shockwaves across both France and England. For the French, you are a divinely sent savior, the fulfillment of ancient prophecies that a maiden from Lorraine would save France. For the English, you are a witch, a tool of the devil, using dark magic to undermine their rightful claims. This starkly contrasting perception of you, a demon for one side and a saint for the other, is a fascinating detail that highlights the profound impact of religious belief on political narratives in the medieval period. The English propaganda machine immediately went into overdrive to discredit you, a testament to how terrified they were of your influence. With Orleans secured, your next objective is clear. Dictated by your voices, the coronation of the Dauphin Charles at Reims. Reims, located deep in Burgundian-controlled territory, is the traditional site for the coronation of French kings. To crown Charles, there would legitimize his claim to the throne in the eyes of God and all of France. A powerful symbolic act that would rally more support to his cause. The French commanders, still cautious, argue for securing other strongholds first, but you are insistent. The voices demand Reims. You lead the army on a bold, rapid march through enemy territory, a logistical and military marvel in itself. Cities along the way, intimidated by your reputation and the momentum of your victories, open their gates without a fight, or fall after brief sieges. Town after town declares its loyalty to the Dauphin. It's a triumphal procession, gaining speed and support with every mile. The sheer speed of this campaign, moving through hostile territory almost unopposed, is a unique aspect that highlights your almost supernatural influence on events. On July 17, 1429, the Dauphin Charles is crowned King Charles VII of France in the Cathedral of Reims. You stand beside him, holding your banner, a witness to the fulfillment of your divine mission. The ceremony is magnificent, filled with ancient rites and solemn vows. For the French, it is a moment of profound national renewal, a public declaration that God is on their side. For Charles, it is the culmination of years of exile and uncertainty. You have achieved the seemingly impossible. You have transformed a disinherited prince into a legitimate king. An undeniable historical truth. After the coronation, your position in the court begins to shift subtly. Charles VII, now king, is still cautious and prone to the advice of his established courtiers and counselors. They are wary of your immense popularity, your direct access to the king, and your seemingly boundless influence over the common people and soldiers. They resent your peasant origins and your unconventional methods. They advise Charles to pursue diplomatic solutions, to negotiate with the Burgundians. Rather than continue the aggressive military campaign you advocate, this growing tension between your divine urgency and the political caution of the newly established court is a crucial, subtle point that foreshadows your later difficulties. You, however, are still driven by your voices. They tell you that the English must be driven entirely out of France. You advocate for an immediate assault on Paris, the capital, which is held by the English and Burgundians. You believe that taking Paris would be the decisive blow, ending the war. Charles and his advisors, however, are reluctant. They prefer a negotiated settlement, fearing the cost and potential failure of such a grand assault. This disagreement over strategy, a fundamental clash between your divine mission and the king's political pragmatism, marks the beginning of your decline in influence. Historians still debate whether a direct assault on Paris immediately after Reims would have been strategically wise or recklessly foolhardy. Despite the reluctance of the king and his court, you persist. You are allowed to launch an assault on Paris in September 1429, but it is poorly supported by the royal army. The attack fails, and you are wounded, shot in the thigh by a crossbow bolt. Charles, discouraged by the defeat and influenced by his advisors, orders a retreat. This failure, your first major setback, is a turning point. It weakens your credibility with the court and allows your enemies to whisper that your divine favor is waning. The wound, a very real, painful injury, serves as a physical reminder of your mortality and vulnerability following the failed siege of Paris. Charles VII disbands much of the royal army and removes you from active command. You are granted noble status and a coat of arms. A gesture of thanks, but it is also a subtle way of sidelining you. You are no longer the direct military leader, but a celebrated figure, an icon, albeit one whose influence is now being carefully managed. You spend the next few months participating in minor skirmishes, still driven by your voices, but increasingly frustrated by the caution and inaction of the royal court. You see the English and Burgundians consolidating their power, and you chafe at the missed opportunities to strike decisive blows. The tension between your unwavering divine mission and the shifting political landscape of the French court becomes unbearable. You understand that your purpose is to fight, to drive out the English, not to languish in court. Despite the king's reluctance, you take matters into your own hands once again. In the spring of 1430, you lead a small force to relieve the siege of Compiègne, a town under attack by the Burgundians. It's a desperate, almost reckless move. Undertaken without explicit royal approval, this act of independent initiative, driven by your unwavering sense of divine purpose, ultimately leads to your capture. You are in the thick of battle, a swirling maelstrom of steel, mud, and desperate shouts. It's May 23rd, 1430, and you are leading a small, dedicated force to relieve the siege of Compiègne, a strategic town under attack by the Burgundians, allies of the English. This isn't a grand royal campaign with the full backing of King Charles VII. It's a desperate, almost solitary endeavor. Born from your unwavering conviction and the urgent commands of your voices, you chafe at the cautious inaction of the French court, and your divine mission compels you to act, even if it means defying royal prudence. This independent action, a testament to your unyielding faith, ultimately leads to your capture, a horrifying turning point in your story. The sally from Compiègne is a desperate gamble. You lead your troops out of the city gates, striking at the Burgundian lines. The fighting is fierce, a chaotic melee as both sides clash. You are in the thick of it, just as you always are, inspiring your men with your presence and your white banner. However, the Burgundians quickly reinforce their positions, and the French forces are pushed back towards the city. The gates of Compiègne are hastily closed to prevent the enemy from entering with the retreating soldiers. And in the confusion, you find yourself cut off, trapped outside the city walls. This moment of isolation, left vulnerable by the closing of the gates, is a critical and tragic detail of your capture. Surrounded by Burgundian soldiers, you fight valiantly, but the odds are overwhelming. You are pulled from your horse, dragged to the ground, and quickly overwhelmed by enemy soldiers. You are captured. The date is May 23rd, 1430. The Burgundians, ecstatic at their prize, recognize you immediately. The news of your capture spreads like wildfire, first through the camps, then across France and England. For the French, it's a devastating blow, a moment of profound despair, as their divinely appointed savior is now in enemy hands. For the English and Burgundians, it's a triumph, a sign that God has abandoned the French and that the witch has finally been caught. This pivotal event, your capture, marks the horrifying beginning of your downfall. Your captors, the Burgundians, initially holds you in various castles. You attempt to escape multiple times, driven by your unwavering belief that your mission is not yet complete. You even try to jump from a tower in Beauvoir, a desperate act that only results in injuries. These escape attempts, a testament to your fierce spirit and determination, highlight your refusal to surrender, even in captivity. However, your desperate efforts are futile. The English, recognizing the immense propaganda value and the strategic importance of holding you, immediately begin negotiations with the Burgundians for your transfer. They are eager to get their hands on you, not just to parade you as a trophy, but to put you on trial. They want to discredit you, to prove that you are not a divinely inspired maiden, but a heretic and a witch, a tool of the devil. This would not only delegitimize King Charles VII's coronation at Reims, which you orchestrated, but also serve as a powerful psychological blow to the French morale. The negotiations are protracted, involving a staggering sum of money, 10,000 livres tournois, an enormous amount for the time. Equivalent to the ransom of a king, this immense price paid for your capture underscores your perceived value to the English cause. Not as a military leader, but as a symbolic target. In November 1430, the transaction is complete. You are formally transferred to the English. You are taken to Rouen, the capital of English-occupied Normandy, a city now under direct English control. Here, you are imprisoned in a tower within the castle of Rouen, guarded by English soldiers. Your prison conditions are harsh. You are kept in chains, often in a cage. Subjected to constant surveillance, this treatment, deliberately designed to break your spirit, reveals the cruelty of your captors and their fear of your influence. This direct transfer to English custody and the subsequent harsh imprisonment is a critical turning point towards your horrifying fate. The English, determined to destroy your reputation and legitimacy, set up an ecclesiastical court to try you. This isn't a military trial, it's a heresy trial, presided over by the French bishop Pierre Cochon, a staunch Burgundian and a man fiercely loyal to the English cause. The court consists of numerous French theologians and jurists, primarily from the University of Paris, who are aligned with the English. This choice of a religious trial, rather than a political or military one, is a crucial historical fact, as it allowed your enemies to discredit your divine claims and condemn you through the very church you profess to serve. It also ensured that if condemned, your death would be sanctioned by religious authority, making it more palatable to a Christian world. The trial begins in January 1431 and lasts for months. You are subjected to relentless questioning, often for hours on end, without legal counsel, without witnesses, and without any real means to defend yourself. The charges are numerous: heresy, witchcraft, blasphemy, idolatry, and wearing male attire, a grave offense in the eyes of the church. Your inquisitors are skilled theologians and legal scholars, attempting to trap you in theological contradictions, to force you to recant your voices, to admit to being a fraud or an agent of evil. They probe every aspect of your life, from your childhood visions to your military actions. You, a young, illiterate peasant girl, face down these learned men with astonishing courage, wit, and unwavering faith. You refuse to deny your voices, insisting they are from God. You defend your decision to wear male attire as a command from God, necessary for your mission and for your safety among soldiers. Your answers are often remarkably sharp, frustrating your interrogators when asked if you knew you were in God's grace. A trick question to claim absolute certainty was heresy. You famously replied, "If I am not, may God put me there, and if I am, may God keep me there." This intelligent and pious response baffled your accusers, a testament to your intuitive spiritual wisdom. This particular response is a well-known example of your quick wit and deep faith during the trial. The trial is a blatant miscarriage of justice, a political show trial disguised as a religious inquiry. Bishop Cochon, the presiding judge, is clearly biased, acting as a prosecutor rather than an impartial judge. He is driven by his loyalty to the English and his desire for political advancement. He manipulates the proceedings, denies you proper legal representation, and ensures that the questions are designed to trap you. The English are constantly pressuring the court for a guilty verdict, eager to be rid of the witch who has caused them so much trouble. This blatant bias and political manipulation of the trial is a fundamental, disturbing truth about your fate. The pressure on you is immense. You are alone, isolated, subjected to constant psychological torment. You are threatened with torture, shown the instruments of torment, though you are never actually tortured, likely because the English wanted a confession, not a mangled corpse. You are constantly pressed to recant, to admit your voices were false, to submit to the authority of the church. You resist, steadfast in your conviction. Your faith is the armor that protects you, the core that cannot be broken, despite the overwhelming pressure and the clear bias of the court. You maintain your innocence regarding the charges of heresy. You insist that your voices were divine, that your mission was from God. This unwavering conviction, in the face of such relentless persecution, is truly remarkable and forms the bedrock of your legend. The ordeal is agonizing, mentally and emotionally exhausting, a slow grinding down of your spirit. Yet you refuse to break. The sheer psychological torture of this trial, often overlooked, is a horrifying aspect of your experience. Finally, after months of relentless questioning and the failure to extract a full confession, the court presents you with a document called the Abjuration. This document, if signed, would require you to admit that your voices were false, that you had sinned, and that you would submit to the church's authority. If you signed it, you would be condemned to perpetual imprisonment. If you refused, you would be condemned as a relapsed heretic, a fate punishable by death at the stake. You are brought before a large crowd in the marketplace of Rouen. Urged to sign the document, you are illiterate, and the document is read to you in a long, complex legalistic form that you likely don't fully comprehend, under immense duress, exhausted, frightened, and perhaps misled about the true implications. You briefly recant, making a mark on the document. It's a moment of weakness, a fleeting lapse in your unwavering resolve. You are condemned to perpetual imprisonment. This brief recantation, a crucial and controversial moment, will later be used against you. However, the relief is short-lived. A few days later, back in your prison cell, you are found wearing male attire again. Perhaps you had been tricked into it. Perhaps you had simply reverted to what felt natural and safer for you in prison. Or perhaps it was a deliberate act of defiance, like whatever the reason. Wearing male clothes after having publicly abjured recanted it is considered a relapse into heresy. This is the critical, final charge that seals your horrifying fate. The English had gotten what they wanted. You are no longer merely a heretic. You are a relapsed heretic, a much graver offense in the eyes of the church, for which there is no mercy. The irony is grim. A simple change of clothing, often seen as a practical matter, becomes the pretext for your death. This specific detail of the relapse and its importance in your condemnation is a key historical fact. You are in your prison cell, the cold stone walls of Rouen Castle closing in around you. It's May 1431, the brief, terrifying moment of your recantation. That agonizing lapse in faith under immense pressure has come and gone. You sign the Abjuration, a document you likely didn't fully understand, promising to submit to the church and no longer wear male attire. You were condemned to perpetual imprisonment, a grim fate, but one that spared you the flames. You might have breathed a fleeting sigh of relief. thinking the worst was over, but your enemies, the English and their Burgundian allies, were not finished with you. They had a singular, horrifying goal to destroy your legitimacy and, by extension, that of King Charles VII, whom you had so miraculously crowned. This relentless pursuit of your utter discrediting, far beyond mere military defeat, is a disturbing testament to the power of your symbolic influence. The respite in your cell is agonizingly short. The specific details of what happened next are a subject of much historical debate, a point where the horrifying truth is obscured by conflicting accounts and the political machinations of the time. But the outcome is tragically clear. Within days, you are found wearing male attire again. Perhaps it was a trick orchestrated by your captors, a deliberate ploy to set a trap. Perhaps the guards removed your female clothing and left only male garments, knowing your desperate need for something to wear, or perhaps hoping you'd revert to the attire you felt safer in. Or perhaps, in your profound distress and the crushing weight of your recantation, you simply reverted to the clothes that had defined your divine mission and offered you a sense of protection among men. Even in prison, your voices, after all, had commanded you to wear them, whatever the precise circumstances. The result is fatal. Wearing male clothes after having publicly abjured, recanted, it is immediately interpreted by your captors and the court as a relapse into heresy. This is the critical, final charge that seals your horrifying fate in the eyes of the Church. A relapsed heretic is beyond redemption, beyond mercy. There is no second chance, this legal nuance. The difference between initial heresy and relapse becomes the terrifying instrument of your condemnation, a chilling manipulation of religious law for political ends. The English had finally gotten what they wanted. You are no longer merely a heretic. You are a relapsed heretic, a much graver offense, for which the punishment is death by burning at the stake, the verdict of the court. Delivered swiftly after this relapse is absolute guilty. You are condemned to death. The sentence is read to you. Your fate now irrevocably sealed by the very religious authority you had sought to serve. The horror of it must have been crushing. You, Joan the Maid, sent by God to save France, are now condemned by men of God, handed over to the secular arm for execution. The irony is excruciating. A grim twist of fate that leaves you no path to escape. On May 30th of 1431, you are led to the old market square in Rouen. The air is heavy, not with the scent of spring, but with the grim anticipation of death. A vast crowd has gathered, a mixture of English soldiers, Burgundian loyalists, and French citizens. Some perhaps curious, some fearful, some genuinely sorrowful. The square is dominated by a large wooden stake and a pyre built high with faggots. The sight of it must have sent a shiver down your spine, a visceral reality of the horrifying death that awaits you. You are dressed in a simple, long gown, the symbol of your public repentance. But now it feels like a shroud, a tall mitre, emblazoned with the words heretic, relapsed, apostate, idolatrous, is placed upon your head. A final, public humiliation designed to strip you of all dignity and legitimacy. As you are led through the streets, accompanied by guards and confessors, you remain remarkably composed, even as tears stream down your face. You request a crucifix, and a kind English soldier fashions a small one from 2 pieces of wood and hands it to you. This small act of compassion in the face of such brutality is a poignant detail that stands out amidst the horror. As you reach the pyre, you kneel and begin to pray. Your final words are a fervent appeal to God, a prayer for forgiveness, and an unwavering declaration of your faith. You call upon the saints who guided you, Michael, Catherine, and Margaret, and you cry out the name of Jesus. You assert your innocence one last time. denying the charges of witchcraft and heresy, your voice, though perhaps trembling, carries across the square, a powerful testament to your enduring conviction. The scene is one of immense pathos, a young woman facing an unspeakable end, yet clinging to the very faith that condemned her. You are bound to the stake, the ropes tight against your limbs. The executioner lights the faggots. The flames begin to lick at the wood, then rise, slowly at first, then rapidly consuming the pyre. The smoke billows, the heat intensifies. You cry out, repeatedly, calling on Jesus' name. The crowd, hardened by war and public executions, is visibly affected. Many weep. Even some of your accusers, including a few of the judges, are said to have shed tears, realizing the enormity of what they had done. The English cardinal, Henry Beaufort, is said to have turned away in disgust. This widespread emotional reaction from the crowd, a well-documented historical fact, indicates the profound impact of your death. Even on those who were meant to condemn you, the horrifying process continues. The flames engulf you, consuming your mortal body. Your last audible cry is, "Jesus, Jesus, Jesus." And then, silence. Your body burns to ashes. The English, wanting to ensure no relics remain, repeatedly rake through the embers to break up your charred remains, and then throw your ashes into the River Seine. They want to eliminate all traces of you, to prevent any cult of personality, any future veneration. But they fail. The attempt to erase you only strengthens your legend. This deliberate act of scattering your ashes, a final attempt to deny you a sacred burial, inadvertently cemented your martyrdom. Your death, at merely 19 years old, is a brutal, political execution disguised as a religious one. It is a horrifying end to a life that had begun with such humble simplicity and then soared to such incredible heights of divine inspiration and military triumph. For the English, it was a victory, a means to delegitimize King Charles VII and crush French morale. For King Charles VII, your death was a convenient, if shameful, way to be rid of an increasingly inconvenient and uncontrollable figure. He never lifted a finger to save you. Despite your immense service to him, a stark and disappointing truth about his character, however, your horrifying fate does not diminish your impact. It amplifies it. Your martyrdom galvanizes the French, inspiring a new wave of nationalist fervor. Within 2 decades of your death, the English are almost entirely driven out of France, and the 100 Years' War finally comes to an end. King Charles VII, the man you crowned, eventually triumphs, securing his rule over a unified France. Decades later, in 1450, Charles VII orders an inquiry into your trial. By 1455, a formal retrial or nullification trial is held. Witnesses, including your family members, soldiers, and many who knew you, testify. The original trial is meticulously re-examined, its blatant injustices and political motivations laid bare. In 1456, the court officially declares your conviction null and void. You are declared innocent of heresy, and your name is cleared. This posthumous vindication, a crucial historical fact, corrects the injustice of your initial condemnation. Centuries later, your story continues to resonate. In the 19th and 20th centuries, you become a powerful national symbol for France, a figure of unity, courage, and divine intervention. In 1909, you are beatified by the Catholic Church, and in 1920, you are canonized as a saint. Saint Joan of Arc, the peasant girl from Domremy, once burned as a heretic and a witch, is now revered as a holy figure, a patron saint of France, a testament to the enduring power of faith and the enduring human spirit in the face of unspeakable cruelty. Your horrifying fate, therefore, becomes the very foundation of your enduring legacy. Your story is not just a historical account, it is a profound narrative about faith, courage, patriotism, and the brutal consequences of power struggles. You were a simple maiden who heard voices, a warrior who inspired armies, a martyr who died for her beliefs, and ultimately, a saint whose spirit continues to inspire millions. Your horrifying fate ensures that your name, Joan of Arc, will never be forgotten. A testament to the power of one individual's conviction against the overwhelming forces of political and religious persecution.